All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about a strategy that can seriously transform a classroom, especially if you're dealing with one that's a little noisy, a little chaotic, and maybe has a few too many students. We're going to explore how you can turn that chaos into a real community by creating something called a classroom constitution. Does this little cycle look familiar to you? I bet it does. It's that exhausting loop so many of us get caught in. You feel like you're in this constant power struggle, and by the end of the day, you're just drained. And the students, well, they just feel disconnected. But what if you could actually break that cycle? What if the answer wasn't about coming up with more rules or stricter punishments, but about flipping the script entirely? Look, let's just be real for a second. When you're trying to manage a big, disruptive class, it can be totally overwhelming. But here's the thing, those challenges, they aren't a sign that you're failing as a teacher. They're actually symptoms of a classroom that's missing a sense of shared purpose, a sense of collective ownership. And this is where we make the pivot. The whole idea is to shift your role from being the enforcer of rules to being the facilitator of empowerment. We're not just making another list of do's and don'ts. We are building a foundational agreement together. And that agreement, that's the classroom constitution. Think of it as a formal document that spells out the rights and, this is key, the responsibilities for every single person in the room. And yeah, that includes you, the teacher. In this model, everyone is a citizen of this little classroom community. This comparison really lays it all out, doesn't it? Just look at the language shift. We're going from teachers' rules to our constitution. It's a move from enforcement to empowerment, swapping out those endless power struggles for real participation. This one simple change can take that feeling of alienation and turn it into genuine, powerful ownership. So before we jump into the how-to, you've got to understand why this actually works, because the psychology behind it, well, that's the secret sauce that makes the whole thing so incredibly effective. First and foremost, it all comes down to ownership. When students help build the document, it becomes theirs. The conversation completely changes. You're no longer saying, hey, you broke my rule. Instead, you can ask, how does that line up with our constitution? The burden of accountability shifts from just you to the entire community. The second big psychological piece is autonomy. You know, students, especially teenagers, they need to feel some sense of control over their world. This process gives them a positive, legitimate way to have a say in their own environment. And when they help build this system, they are so much more likely to respect it and keep it going. And finally, clarity. So much of what we call misbehavior just comes from a lack of clarity. Think about vague commands like be quiet or be respectful. Those can mean totally different things to different people. A constitution gets rid of all that guesswork and replaces it with clear, co-created definitions of what a great learning space actually looks and sounds like. So, for instance, instead of just saying, be quiet, your constitution might define specific noise levels for different tasks. Level 0 means totally silent work. Level 2 is for group discussions. All of a sudden, everybody knows exactly what the expectation is because they helped write the definition. Okay, so you get the why. Now for the fun part, the how. Let's walk through the actual steps for drafting this in your classroom. And don't worry, this whole process is way more manageable and way more rewarding than you might think. So here's our roadmap. It's a simple 4-step process. First, we lay the foundation. Second, we brainstorm all the rights and responsibilities. Third, we draft it and debate the different articles. And finally, number 4, we ratify it and publish the final document for everyone to see. Step 1 is all about setting the right tone. You kick things off with a big, positive question like this one. See, this isn't about making a list of things students can't do. It's about creating a shared vision for the kind of place where everyone can actually succeed and feel good about being there. Now, step 2, this is the heart of the whole thing. It's connecting every right to a responsibility. It's a two-way street. So for every right a student has, like, say, the right to be heard, there's a responsibility they have to uphold, like the responsibility to listen when someone else is speaking. So after you've done all the drafting and debating, you get to the ratification. And trust me, this is not just some formality. Having every single student and you put their signature on that final document is a really powerful symbolic act. It solidifies the idea that this is a serious promise you're all making to each other. But look, creating the document is really only half the job. A constitution that just sits on a wall collecting dust is pretty useless, right? It has to be a living, breathing part of your classroom every single day. So what happens when, things inevitably go off the rails? A student starts talking out of turn. A group gets a little too loud. Instead of immediately jumping to a punishment, you use the language of the document itself. You can literally point to the Constitution on the wall and ask the class, hey guys, which article are we forgetting right now? This totally shifts the focus. It's no longer a conflict between you and a student. It's a gentle reminder of the agreement the community made together. It's all about accountability, not anger.
A policy board is an awesome way to bring all of this to life. It's basically one central spot where you post the signed document, maybe some visual cues like attention signals or that noise chart we talked about, and by scheduling a quick review every month, you're showing the students that this is their document, one that can actually be changed and improved as you go.
Okay, so let's pull all of this together. When you really invest the time and energy to build a classroom constitution, the change can be huge. We're talking about something that goes way beyond just getting a noisy room to quiet down. What you're really doing here is teaching crucial life skills. You're giving your students a hands-on lesson in what civic responsibility feels like. You're showing them how democracy actually works in the real world. And you are actively guiding them step by step through the process of building a respectful, functional community. And that kind of leaves us with this final thought. When you shift from a model of top-down control to one of co-creation, you're not just managing a class, you're empowering future citizens. So the real question is, what kind of incredible community could your students build if you just gave them the tools and the trust to do it themselves?